Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, Mike Mayberry, Executive Director of the Oklahoma Agriculture Mediation Program, will discuss solutions offered through this program. If you have questions, ask them through the chat box by clicking the chat button at the bottom of the screen, and Mike will answer your questions at the end of the webinar. I will also paste the mediation website into the chat box as well. Mike, I will turn it over to you now.
Good morning, Brent, and thank you for the opportunity to be back on the OSU webinar programs. It's always a pleasure to be here, and particularly in these trying times for all Oklahomans and everybody in America, but also for the producers that we're reaching out to this morning. So again, thank you for that opportunity. What I'd like to do as we get started here is reassure everyone that the Oklahoma Ag Mediation Program is still open. We're ready to help with the Oklahoma producers and make sure that we can meet all of their needs as they come up. These are particularly trying times, and I know USDA is working on ideas to help producers. I don't have any specifics yet, and they'll announce it when they're ready. But the main thing is, if you need us, I still want you to call the Oklahoma Ag Mediation Program right away, and we'll get into what we do exactly for those that have never heard of us. Some of you may have heard about us before and may be very familiar with us, but we also will post some contact information later in this production.
The Oklahoma Agriculture Mediation Program knows this is a hard time for farmers and ranchers, and we want you to know we're still open and we're still here for you. The Ag Mediation Program is a free service that provides mediation to agricultural producers who may need help with ag-related disputes. We know firsthand about working together to resolve conflicts so you don't have to go through the court systems. The service is available at no cost for Oklahoma farmers and ranchers in all 77 counties. For more information, you can go to ok.gov/mediation or just give us a call at 800-248-5465.
So that's a spot that we're currently playing on the Oklahoma Ag Radio Network, and we updated it a little bit because some people might need us and think, well, it's not the right time to call them, but there's never a wrong time to call the Ag Mediation Program. We're open 24/7, 365, and if somebody needs us, we want them to call and we want to help them if something's troubling them that's in our abilities to help with. I'm going to back up just a little bit all the way to 1987 and say that's when Oklahoma got the first certified program in the nation, and it was funded, and the legislature got involved and passed state statutes to support the program. And now we operate entirely on federal grant monies. There's no state monies put in this, but we provide no-cost mediations to Oklahoma ag producers and the USDA agencies and bankers and creditors, farm creditors, and all sorts of folks. We're going to get into, in a moment, into discussion of the other types of cases that the new Farm Bill brought online. But the main thing is to recognize that it's no cost, and if somebody calls us, we will spring into action and help with whatever their need may be if it's in our abilities to help. So now we're going to take a look at what the new Farm Bill did in 2018 and added several types of cases. One of the most exciting ones, and we had lots of inquiries in times past, was about neighbor-to-neighbor disputes. And we always had to say, no, that's not an authorized case type. But it was added in the 18 Farm Bill. Also, family farm transitions were added, which there's several people in the state that specialize in that, but we can help too, and we can help guide you to people that will help you, or we can maybe assist directly if there's a planning session that's working or not working with the family on how to best approach the farm transition from generation to generation. Pesticide cases are new to us as well. We haven't had any of those come in yet, but I could imagine that they would be things like a neighbor's spray drift would get on another neighbor and cause problems, or something along those lines. Lease issues, I'm pretty excited about that one. Land and equipment leases, if there's a dispute between the lessor and the lessee, we may be able to jump in there and sit everybody down at the table and work it out in a way that helps everyone and gets beyond that and moves on. Organic food issues, that may be something that is in Oklahoma. We haven't seen any cases like that yet. We hear that there's a lot of that going on the eastern part of the United States, but we haven't experienced them yet. Finally, the new law, the Farm Bill, provided for other issues to be mediated as determined by the Oklahoma Secretary of Agriculture. So we're open-minded to that. We have to go through a little bit of an approval process to get that done, not at the state level, but at the federal level. But so if somebody has an idea of something that needs to be mediated that's outside the box, so to speak, we're willing to at least try to take that up as well. So back to my core presentation that some of you have heard before, mediation is voluntary, it's informal. The people agree to meet in a confidential setting to try to work out a solution without having to go to court or have an appeal. Most of our mediations seem to be with the USDA agencies, but in Oklahoma, but it could be with a farm creditor like a banker, or with a feed store even, or something like that. So I think, we're open to hearing what your concerns are and then trying to make that work as part of a mediation process. So here's a list of some of the things that we've done in the past or that we're willing to do under the original congressional legislation. As I talked about earlier, farm credit, loans that are delinquent or being accelerated, farm plans, farm program compliance, and then again, foreclosures and acceleration or conservation contracts. We do mediations in all 77 counties with the farmers and ranchers. You do not have to be an Oklahoma resident to be able to mediate in Oklahoma as a producer. You just have to be practicing your farming or ranching inside of Oklahoma. So a person that lived in Kansas or Texas or Arkansas who did business as a farmer in Oklahoma could actually do a mediation with us in Oklahoma. If it's a Kansas resident that needs to do a Kansas type mediation in Kansas, there's an office there. In fact, there are 42 states that have ag mediation programs. Oftentimes it'll start with an adverse decision or a determination letter from a USDA agency, and on the back of those letters, it always says your recourse, if you elect to use it, is mediation or an appeal. Sometimes there's a little bit of confusion about that, and people go straight to an appeal because they think that's a better choice. But in reality, the right order would be to try mediation first before getting into the more complex appeal. And the appeal would actually be more like a court procedure, whereas mediation is very informal and very friendly and done usually within your local community in a private setting. Nobody knows why we're there or what we're doing. The benefits of ag mediation, it doesn't cost anything in Oklahoma because we're funded by USDA grants. It's much, much cheaper than appealing litigation or bankruptcy. It maintains the good working relationship between the parties. It's much quicker to resolve the situation in that the mediation will be set up within 10 to 20 days, possibly 30 days of when we first get notified. And then we'll quickly set up that mediation and go forward. Sometimes the mediation only takes 2 hours, and that's often the case, and we're able to get to the best possible answer that way. In my mind, mediation always reduces the stress as compared to litigation or just going home every night and thinking about the problem, but not doing anything about it. So mediation is a good choice to get everybody in the room in a safe fashion to talk about what's going on and look for solutions. So you contact our office, and we'll have a slide up in just a moment that tells how to do that. We schedule the mediation, get a mediator assigned, and then we will sit in a room privately. Nobody knows why we're there. I often go use a local library or a local courthouse, find a private room. I don't even tell them who's going to be in the mediation. I set the mediation up in a way that we're there privately. We come and go, and nobody locally knows what we're there to meet about. So then we talk about what the problem is, talk about possible solutions, and then talk about anything else that may help work this out. Interestingly, mediators do not act like a judge and don't determine the outcome. The parties determine the outcome. So the mediator listens, makes suggestions, listens to the best suggestions of the parties, and then ultimately the parties decide what they want to do, and then the mediator would draft an agreement, write it down, and have it signed by both parties, and that's the typical resolution. If the parties cannot agree, and it's a stalemate, so to speak, I think the communications actually are enhanced because everybody knows specifically what the root problem is as we've talked about it. And so there is a benefit to it, even if it's not resolved completely. I've had situations where somebody didn't understand why they may not have gotten into a USDA program, and they thought they'd done everything they were supposed to do, but at mediation, it became clear that they had missed a step or not completed a particular piece of paper or something. And in determining that, most of those folks left and said, I will be back in and make application again next year. And when I do, I will get it right next year. So mediation is no cost to our Oklahoma producers. And as to location, we make every effort to come to the best place for everybody. Sometimes we meet in the middle. Sometimes we go to the place where the producer is. That's the most common, and try to do it in a place that's private in their area so they don't have to travel too far. Do I need to bring a lawyer to mediation or an accountant? You can if it's necessary and helpful to your cause, but you don't need to bring somebody with you. You can actually come in and present it in the informal environment yourself, but you're always welcome to bring somebody in that will support you legally or with your numbers. Speaking of numbers, what documents and paperwork do I need to bring to the mediation? I would say bring anything that states the position that you're in that you think is helpful to the mediation, and that applies to both sides. If it's a USDA type mediation, they're going to bring their documentation. And if you have something that you think is different than what they have, you need to bring it as well. How long does a mediation take? Typically 2 hours to maybe 3 hours. If we haven't made progress in that amount of time, we need to look at it again and see what we should be doing differently. Sometimes it becomes necessary to schedule a second session. Very rarely a third session if we're waiting on documentation or information to arrive, but most of them take about 2 hours. So mediators are generally good and helpful people. They are familiar with the farm issues, the farm lingo, the words, the acronyms from the government, the bankers' language. We've done enough mediations that we know typically what the issues are going to come down to, but we always want the parties to recognize the issues that they think are on the table or should be on the table. Mediation can avoid litigation, appeals, bankruptcy, and foreclosure, as we said earlier. And when I'm doing a mediation, I find that one of the most pleasing parts is it's kind of can be over right then that day, and either it was progress was made or it was determined why progress could not be made. When one goes to mediation, they still have preserved the right to ask for an appeal through the USDA appeals process, but there is always a time limit involved, and you have 30 days to ask for a mediation or an appeal, and whatever number of days have expired in getting to the mediation or requesting the mediation, the number of days left in the 30-day period remains for you to ask for an appeal. So that's kind of a critical deadline. Probably a good time to say that if you're getting mail from the bank or from the USDA or somebody who's trying to notify you, you need to take action and not ignore the mail. When you get that letter from USDA, as an example, if you don't react to it, usually within 30 days or whatever deadline they have on that particular transmission of information, not reacting is probably the worst thing that you can do, in a sense that the deadline that they give you will pass. If you make a request for mediation within the time available, within that 30 days, the clock stops ticking, and you're able to then sit back a minute, regroup a little bit, and decide with us when the mediation will take place, and also the 30-day rule stops. Everybody's worried about America's farmers. We all should be, even in this time of crisis when all the things that are going on with the virus and businesses are taking a break right now. The one thing we know in the future is everybody's going to continue to need to eat, and that's accomplished because of farmers. And we need to work hard and very hard to keep in business and doing what they do so well. So now I promised that we'd have the contact information, and this last slide that you see now tells you how to reach us. We're actually housed in the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture near the state capitol. We don't have very many people walk in the door and say, I'm here and I need some help. Most people call us or write us or send us a letter in the regular mail, but any of those actually work. You could walk in, and right now is not a particularly good time to do that because a lot of the offices are trimmed up and trying to have people work from home due to the virus, but you're certainly welcome to call that number, that 521-3934, or the 800 number, 248-5465, or go online and just Google it and say Oklahoma Agriculture Mediation, and you will find us in a hurry because we pop up first thing on the World Wide Web. So that's kind of my encouragement to you today, and my hope that you need us, you will find us. If your neighbor down the road needs us, you will help them find us, and we will work in every way possible to offer the assistance that I have promised you in this program today. Brent, I'm about to wind down. Did you have any questions come in?
I do not see any questions at this time, so if anyone does have questions, feel free to ask them. And there's a chat box at the very bottom. Click on that chat button, and it'll bring up a window for you to enter in the chats.
Again, I appreciate the opportunity to be before your audience today and to work with you and OSU. And if you do have anything surface as a question that shows up later, let us know.
Will do. And I would like to thank everyone for joining us today. You can help us out by telling us how we're doing by filling out a short survey, and I pasted that link into the chat box. The chat box also has a link to the Ag Mediation Program website and the eFarm Management website. Also, our next webinar will discuss farm stress, and it will be on April 28th. It's a Tuesday again at noon, like always. So I'm not seeing any questions come in. So if nothing else, I will see you on April 28th. Thank you and goodbye.